For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged; and with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. Good, that suits me. And in the 12th chapter of Matthew, for whosoever shall do the will of my Father that is in heaven, the same is my brother and sister and mother. For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to the church he belongs to? No. To the manner in which he was baptized? No. According to his creed? No. Then he shall reward every man according to his works. Good. I subscribe to that doctrine. And in the 16th chapter, and Jesus called a little child to him, and stood him in the midst, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye become converted, and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. I do not wonder that a reformer in his day that met the scribes and Pharisees and hypocrites, I do not wonder that at last he turned to children and said, Except ye become as little children. I do not wonder. And yet see what children the children of God have become. What an interesting dimpled darling John Calvin was. Think of that prattling babe known as Jonathan Edwards. Think of the infants that founded the Inquisition, that invented instruments of torture to tear human flesh. They were the ones who had become as little children. So I find in the 19th chapter, and behold, one came and said unto him, Good master, what good thing shall I do in order to inherit eternal life? And he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, and that is God. But if thou wilt enter into eternal life, keep the commandments. And he said unto him, Which? Now there is a pretty fair issue. Here is a child of God asking God what is necessary for him to do in order to inherit eternal life. And God says to him, Keep the commandments. And the child said to the Almighty, Which? Now, if there ever had been an opportunity given to the Almighty to furnish a gentleman with an inquiring mind with the necessary information upon that subject, here was the opportunity. He said unto him, Which? And Jesus said, Thou shalt do no murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, honor thy father and mother, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. He did not say to him, You must believe in me, that I am the only begotten Son of the living God. He did not say, You must be born again. He did not say, You must believe the Bible. He did not say, You must remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. He simply said, Thou shalt do no murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, honor thy father and thy mother, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And thereupon the young man, who I think was a little fresh, and probably mistaken, said unto him, All these things have I kept from my youth up. I don't believe that. Now comes in an interpolation. In the old times, when the church got a little scarce for money, they always put in a passage praising poverty. So they had this young man ask, What lack I yet? And Jesus said unto him, If thou wilt be perfect, go and sell that thou hast, and give it to the poor, and thou shalt have treasures in heaven. The church has always been willing to swap off treasures in heaven for cash down. And when the next verse was written, the church must have been nearly dead broke. And again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Did you ever know a wealthy disciple to unload on account of that verse? And then comes another verse, which I believe is an interpolation. And every one that has forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my sake, shall receive an hundredfold, and shall inherit everlasting life. Christ never said it, never. Whosoever shall forsake father and mother, why, he said to this man who asked him, what shall I do to inherit eternal life, among other things, he said, honor thy father and thy mother. And we turn over the page, and he says, if you will desert your father and your mother, you shall have everlasting life. It won't do. If you desert your wife and your little children, or your lands, the idea of putting a house and lot on equality with wife and children. Think of that. I do not accept the terms. I will never desert the one I love for the promise of any God. It is far more important that we shall love our wives than that we shall love God. And I will tell you why. You cannot help him. You can help her. You can fill her life with the perfume of perpetual joy. It is far more important that you love your children than that you love Jesus Christ. And why? If he is God, you cannot help him. But you can plant a little flower of happiness in every footstep of the child, from the cradle until you die in that child's arms. Let me tell you today, it is far more important to build a home than to erect a church. The holiest temple beneath the stars is a home that love has built. And the holiest altar in all the wide world is the fireside around which gather father and mother and children. There was a time when people believed that infamy. There was a time when they did desert fathers and mothers and wives and children. St. Augustine says to the devotee, fly to the desert, and though your wife put her arms around your neck, tear her hands away. She is a temptation of the devil. Though your father and mother throw their bodies athwart your threshold, step over them. And though your children pursue, and with weeping eyes beseech you to return, listen not. It is the temptation of the evil one. Fly to the desert and save your soul. Think of such a soul being worth saving. While I live, I propose to stand by the folks. Here there is another condition of salvation. I find it in the 25th chapter. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was a hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. And I was sick, and ye visited me. And I was in prison, and you came unto me. Good. And I tell you tonight that God will not punish with eternal thirst the man who has put the cup of cold water to the lips of his neighbor. God will not allow to live in eternal nakedness of pain the man who has clothed others. For instance, here is a shipwreck, and here some brave sailor stands aside and allows a woman whom he never saw before to take his place in the boat. And he stands there, grand and serene as the wide sea, and he goes down. Do you tell me there is any God who will push the lifeboat from the shore of eternal life when that man wishes to step in? Do you tell me that God can be unpitying to the pitiful, that he can be unforgiving to the forgiving? I deny it, and from the aspersions of the pulpit I seek to rescue the reputation of the deity. Now, I have read you everything in Matthew on the subject of salvation. That is all there is. Not one word about believing anything. It is the gospel of deed, the gospel of charity, the gospel of self-denial. And if only that gospel had been preached, persecution never would have shed one drop of blood. Not one. Now, according to the testimony, Matthew was well acquainted with Christ. According to the testimony, he had been with him and his companion for years, and if it was necessary to believe anything in order to get to heaven, Matthew should have told us.